Welcome back for part 3 of chapter 10, Leading the Project Team. Now, we're going to take a step back from leadership theories, leadership styles, to what is needed in a leader that creates a great leader. Okay. And so what we're looking at is what is inside of the leader? What are the personal traits of the leader? And how does the leader manage certain things within their life? Okay. Now, before we get into this, because what you see here is Goleman's study suggests that leaders who have mastered the authoritative, democratic, affiliative coaching styles have the best climate and have the highest performance. Well, what is it that allows them to master different leadership styles and apply them, again, in different circumstances, etc.? Well, if you do a Google search, which I highly recommend you do on Goleman Emotional Intelligence Theory, I'm going to go right here to a 2013 article by my alma mater, Concordia University, which unfortunately is closing their doors after 121 years. But this is great. Understanding Emotional Intelligence Theory. What should be pointed out is that Daniel Goleman is a psychologist and a journalist. He wasn't the first to articulate the idea of emotional intelligence, utilizing the work, I think they're down here, of John Mayer, now at the University of New Hampshire, and Peter Salovey of Yale. So they theorized that a unitary intelligence underlay those other skill sets. So the idea that emotional intelligence underlays all the other skills of a great leader. So definitely look this over. It'll give you some great history. It'll talk about, the 5 components. We're going to talk about those. Some of these components have been renamed, to create marketing and blah, 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 and, make different theories based on this. But we're going to look at these 5 basics. Okay, so effective leaders have the flexibility to switch among those leadership styles literally as needed. So it may be that we have an employee that today needs to be, led from a coaching style today in this moment, but tomorrow, leave that employee alone. They're going to go do the work. Okay. So the ability depends on a person's emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is the ability to understand and manage our relationships and ourselves better. So what that means is it really starts with managing and leading ourselves before we can lead others. And what this means is to become and be self-aware, to be able to self-manage, to be aware of social awareness, social regulation. I'll give you an example of that in a minute, and self-regulation. How do I regulate in stressful situations? Maybe you've had a boss that every time there's a stressful situation, she just gets angry and blows up. Is that really self-regulation? And remember, when she gets angry and blows up, or he gets angry and blows up, okay, doesn't matter. What are they demonstrating to others? What behavior are they demonstrating? And is that acceptable? I've done a lot of work recently over the last 2 years on this idea of my own emotional intelligence, understanding my feelings, understanding my emotions, figuring out how those apply to people that I interact with, either in consulting work I do, in teaching, in being on committees. When you get many strong personalities in a room, it can be tough. And for me, what I realize is that I enjoy being in group settings. But I can only do it for so long before I need to self-regulate and self-care to create more energy to turn around and do it again. Okay? So it's being aware of self. That's what this is all about. Emotional intelligence is becoming aware of self and thus responding to self versus reacting to self. Okay? So emotional intelligence, improving one's emotional intelligence can be like changing a bad habit, takes time, patience, and a great deal of effort. Now, what this means is this can apply to any behavior. We don't necessarily need to get rid of a bad behavior. We just need to replace a bad behavior with a good one. Notice the difference. If we just remove the bad behavior, we don't have anything to do differently. Okay. So consequently, we don't want to get rid of something. We want to replace it, or in certain cases, embrace. So we can replace or embrace. We may have habits that are perfectly acceptable that we need to embrace, things that we don't want to change. Okay. Now, if you notice here, as we talk about this, an example, you may follow a democratic leadership style when things go smoothly, but then switch to a more coercive style when things don't go according to plan. And that's pretty important. And I see that error and I'll fix it. There we go. Don't. Oops. What happened there? Don't go according to plan. As a result, you may flare up and tune out other people's ideas just when you need them most. So realize we have to always be willing to look at other styles. So there's 4 styles mentioned here, concepts of emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, social skills. Those were the keys. And then I've added self-regulation because I think that is hugely important. When we self-regulate, we respond. When we're not self-regulating, we react. And the fact is, we're all going to do it. We're never going to be perfect with this, and we don't have to be. We just need to make progress. If we want to be a leader, leadership starts with looking at self. So let's look at self-awareness. So, emotional self-awareness, reading and understanding your emotions as well as how your emotions impact your job performance and those around you. Now, notice it says job performance. I need to know how my emotions impact my ability to be a parent. That's a job. To be a friend, that's a job. And then, of course, to be a leader, to be a teacher, my jobs. Okay. Realistically evaluating your strengths and weaknesses. Notice we have to become brutally honest. A lot of 12-step programs are based at their core on emotional intelligence. People get into addiction because they're not necessarily emotional intelligent, and thus they try to mask issues that they have, their strengths and weaknesses, through addiction. So as you become, say, sober, for example, and then have the ability of clear mind to do these things, to do this work, that's where we change so we don't go back into those habits of addiction. Okay. Self-confidence, having a strong and positive self-sense of worth. Now, a lot of times, folks, we can see these qualities much easier in others than to challenge ourselves to recognize these. So if you're looking to be a leader, start here. Go get a coach. Go ask people, and we'll look at that in a minute, for their brutal honesty. This is not about being politically correct and, oh, you're doing such a great job, here's a trophy. No, these are your strengths and these are your weaknesses. Now notice it says strengths and weaknesses. Don't just focus on the weakness, focus on the strengths. So self-awareness, emotional self-awareness, having a strong and positive sense of self, knowing who you are. So self-management, another concept in this, self-control, keeping your impulses and negative emotions in check. Okay? A lot of people find a lot of energy within their negative emotions because as they think about these negative emotions, adrenaline builds in the body, they get more energy, and off they go. Maybe even to do the work. Trustworthiness, consciousness, adaptability, achievement orientation, initiative, all parts of self-management. How do I get myself going? How do I seize opportunities? How do I create the time? You'll notice that one of the keys here in the aspect of emotional intelligence is a lot of times we see people who balance their lives. Maybe they're people who get up at 4, 5 a.m. They get those extra 2 hours a day into their workday. That's how they're able to create great work, do things that exceed the expectations of their employers or whatever the case may be. But they also then take time off. They self-care realizing that so they can adapt. They're conscious. They're trustworthy. Trustworthy is huge. Have you had a boss that you didn't necessarily trust? So social awareness, so empathy, seeing and understanding other people's emotions, perspectives. Remember that your employees are going to bring their outside life into the workplace. Very few people can successfully disseminate between the two. And the people that do, that hold all that stuff in throughout the workday, it ends up coming out negatively. Okay? So we as a leader need to be able to recognize what is going on with others and ask those tough questions. Are there things going on? You know, let me give you an example of self-awareness. I have struggled with depression over the last couple years. I've had some real challenges in my life, and it's affected my ability to do my work. Okay? Now, it was easier just to live in that and trudge through until someone brought it to my attention, and then I went out seeking help to get help for that. And of course, I feel a lot better. I'm more empathetic towards people. I'm hugely more productive, and I'm figuring out when I am productive. I've figured out that I need a rest in the afternoon so that I can work into the evening. Okay? That works best for me. Figure out what works best for you. You know, organizational awareness, you know, being perceptive about the currents of everyday organizational life. You know, what are the cliques? What is the culture? How does that impact? You know, how do we build networks? How do we build and coach people? You know, if we can't coach ourselves, we can't coach people. It really is that simple, in my opinion. Service-oriented, recognizing and meeting customers' needs, meeting team members' needs. That servant leadership, being socially aware of what's going on around us. Social skills or relationship management. So visionary leadership, you know, taking charge, inspiring others, you know, with a compelling vision or support of the vision that the organization has, where we're going, how we're going to get there, keeping people going, you know, being that cheerleader. Come on, let's go, let's do. But not from in front, come with me, but in back saying, here, let me help you get there. That's a huge difference. Influencing, again, developing others, great communication, change catalyst, initiating new ideas, and leading people in the right direction. Being able to manage conflict, we are always going to have conflict. And when we talk about managing conflict, we have to manage conflict within self. That's how we learn to manage conflict in others or between others, when we manage conflict within self. Building bonds, cultivating and maintaining, you know, a web of relationships inside and outside the organization. I don't care. You know what's interesting? No matter what huge leader you think about, whatever leaders inspire you, I bet you find out that they have a mentor, and they continue to have a mentor. They continue to have somebody who is willing to take the risk of telling them the truth, both about their assets and their deficits. So consider that. Teamwork and collaboration. Finally, self-regulation. Now, this is the one that I've added, and this is the one that's really impacted me. So I wanted to bring it in play here, okay? And it is part of Goleman's concepts: emotional control, ability to respond to ongoing demands of experience with the range of emotions in a manner that is socially tolerable. Getting upset, getting angry, blowing up is not necessarily socially tolerable. That doesn't mean we don't do it. It might mean we do it in a controlled environment to release whatever's going on so that we can take care of ourselves. Anger is it isn't just an emotion. It is what we do with anger that creates the damage that keeps us from leading people. Metacognition, awareness and understanding of one's own thought process, being flexible, sustaining, so strength or support physically or mentally, is what that should read. Emotional control. How do we respond? Notice I didn't say react, but how do we respond in stressful situations versus reacting? You know, acting at, the action of beginning something. How do we initiate projects? Sometimes for me, I come into the workplace and, oh man, YouTube's there, social media's there. I know not to get on those. What I know to do is start the work, because when I start the work, then I can just go through the work. So if I initiate, I stick with it. Planning and organizing, utilizing logical, systematic, and orderly procedures to meet objectives. Okay, this can be something simple, this can be something complex, but planning and organizing are important. If we can't plan and organize our day, if we can't plan and organize our time at the basic level, we're going to have a real challenge in succeeding both as a team member and a leader. So an individual can strengthen their emotional intelligence and leadership by asking who I am now, who is it that I want to be, getting help, getting mentors, seeing counselors, seeing coaches, hiring coaches, hiring people to tell you the truth. May require 360-degree feedback from peers, subordinates, or superiors, or again, someone outside of the organization. Okay, this doesn't need to be people inside the organization. Next step involves devising a plan for getting from where you are to where you want to be. And you don't have to get there overnight. When I advise students as to how to meet their educational goals, and I hear that they're working 30 hours a week, I'm real cautious to say, hey, maybe you don't want to be a full-time student. So what if it takes you another year to get to your goal? At least you get to your goal versus burning out within the first or second term. I'm one of those people that I just powered through for 2 years in my associates. I powered through another 2.5 years in my bachelor's. I powered through my master's. But at the end of that, which was a 10-year process, I was absolutely exhausted. And what I realized is there would have been a better way to add a couple years and not have ended up being completely exhausted at the end of the process. I now had all the skills, but not the energy to put into it, if that makes sense. So always be thinking when you're doing that plan, not focusing on just the result, but also focus on the quality of the process and how you get to the result. That's enough for this part 3. We will be back. We'll talk about ethics and leadership. Take care.